we're talking about the MPC meeting, analyzing the outcome of that meeting. And of course, as you've heard from our earlier report and stories, they cut the rate by 0.50 basis points, down from 27.5% at the last meeting to now 27%. Now, if you remember, we will recall on the program last week, I had two people speak to us about this, Dr. Aliyu Elias and Professor Mokhtar Imam, and they were of the opinion that the MPC, when we asked them to, give us the look ahead, what would they want, what were the expectations, and they were of the opinion that the MPC should consider, cutting rates a bit. And it seems like maybe they've heard the voices of the people, because even the Manufacturers Association of Nigeria asked for the cuts, and all that. People have been asking for it, and it seems like the Central Bank of Nigeria heard the cries of the people and decided to do something about that. Now, joining me to further look into this conversation is Dr. Emmanuel Bashayi. He's joining us virtually. Now, good morning, Doctor.
Good morning, Chiamaka. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so we've talked about this for a while, monetary policy rate, fiscal and all that, and you've been saying that, it's time to start looking at a cut. Now, what do you make of this move by the CBN?
Very good question, Chiamaka. I think we have a very responsible CBN leadership. Please confirm if you can hear me.
I can hear you, please. Go ahead.
Okay. So we have a very responsible, I think we have a very responsive CBN leadership that is not just sitting down in an air-conditioned office coming up with rates, but also checking the pulse of the system. And I think in the last couple of times that I appeared on this program, I said they should keep the rates, and then we should also, before the end of this year, see a doubling backwards of the rates. And I'm glad they've reduced the rate by 50 basis points. That's a very, very positive one. It means they're listening, and they're also checking the pulse of the economy, and they are actively using the tools that they have at their disposal to be able to see how we can better the lot of Nigerians. So I commend the CBN Governor Yemi Cardoso and his team for this, and I also look forward to even deeper rate cuts as we go, because it shows that the decision taken earlier to jack up the rates is now yielding the results. Now it's time to capitalize on those gains and further accelerate the growth of the economy. So it's very good, and I look forward to even deeper rate cuts. If this momentum gets sustained till the end of the year, that will make it even more interesting.
Okay, so now away from just the rates that were cut, so other things happened. We could see that the asymmetric interest rate corridor was maintained at plus 260 minus 250 basis points around the MPR. However, for the CRR, it was dropped to 45% for commercial banks, but however, merchant banks still maintained at 16%. Liquidity ratio at 30%. All these numbers, a lot of numbers that have been reeled out there now. What does this really mean? Are these actually good indicators for us, this move that have been made by the CBN?
I mean, absolutely. One thing you would notice with the current CBN leadership led by Yemi Cardoso is the fact that they're big when it comes to keeping our banks as safe as they should be and ensuring that investors' deposits are properly protected. So that's where you see the CRR being tinkered with. You also see the rates around the asymmetric corridor and all of that. So the key objective is to ensure that our banks remain as strong as they should be, and investors and the banking public is properly protected against any uncertainties. So all of this are just meant to safeguard the public and safeguard the banking system. Remember, in the last couple of months, the CBN talked about the recapitalization of banks, just to keep our banks as strong and as viral as they should be, so that it can restore. I mean, they can withstand whatever shock there that comes. The CBN's objective is to ensure we have stronger, very viable banks than even if there are few of them, but they are strong and they're very solid, than have too many banks out there that can crumble like a pack of cards when the shock and the storms come. So it's very good for the country, and I think the CBN is working very well in the right direction, coming down on the MPC rates, on the MPR, and then also tightening some of the measures that ensure that our banks are strong for not just today, but for the long term. So the CBN is looking at the long game, the long haul, and I think it's very, very good for our banking system.
All right, now let's just stay with this recapitalization you mentioned. One of the other fallouts, or one of the things that the CBN governor said was that so far, I think about just 14 banks or so, I'm not very clear on the number, still trying to confirm that, have met the target, and we just have 6 months to go to the deadline. Now, you said the CBN is trying to see to it that we have stronger, safer banks, which is a great thing, works for everybody. Now, what does this mean for all these other banks out there? What are we hoping to see if they do not meet up with their target in the next 6 months?
So I think it might not be public yet, but I think there are a couple of underground conversations around some mergers of some banks already, to be able to ensure that they're able to keep up with that deadline, because the CBN isn't joking with anybody anymore. They have stamped their feet as the regulator of the banking industry, and they are not playing games, right? So I know under the background there are conversations already around some banks getting acquired, and then some mergers and acquisition on the way. So I think that's also good. It's not a bad thing for the banking system. I mean, we need to put behind us the horrible days of banks just going under overnight and depositors' funds are trapped and people are stranded and all of that. We need to make that history really, really stay in the past. And I think this is one of the things that the CBN is really, really focusing on, and ensuring that they don't leave anything to chance. So it's important. I'm sure the next 6 months to the deadline, I mean, the next 6 months till up to the end of the deadline, we will definitely see a whole lot more happening, some permutations. So the banks that have met the target already, I think they're safe, they're good. But then for the other ones that are yet to meet up, I think there will be a lot of moving around. A couple of things will be moved around the next couple of months. It will be a very interesting couple of months. So let's look out for that. But the CBN isn't going back on that. And I think it's very, very good for the country and for the economy in general.
Okay.
I mean, remember, the investors, the foreign investors are also looking at how strong your banks are. They don't want to bring their money and something goes wrong overnight. So it's good for attracting the right investments and also ensuring that we give the right level of confidence to investors and to or would-be investors.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much. Just for those who are wondering what we're talking about recapitalization, just a brief background to that conversation and that answer he gave. The central bank has put up a deadline for banks to recapitalize in March 2024, a directive raising the minimum paid up capital thresholds for banks depending on their license authorization class. And for some of them, commercial banks are now 500 billion naira. The last time this was done was about 25 billion naira. That's about 20% or rather 2,000%.
20 years ago. I mean,
yes.
Yeah. And that was 20 years ago.
That was a very long time that was done, actually. That was during Sanusi Lamido's time when he was the current emir.
No, that was during when Sanusi Lamido and when Soludo was there. You remember the Soludo solution?
Okay. So you see, it's been a while, and now this is happening. About 2,000% increment is what I expect, from 25 billion now to 500 billion. I think they're factoring inflation to put those numbers there as well. Now that's for commercial banks international authorization. Now commercial banks national authorization 200 billion. Commercial banks regional authorization 50 billion. Merchant banks national 50 billion. Non-interest, that's Islamic banks, national 20 billion, non-interest banks, regional 10 billion. So that's the new amount minimum that each bank is supposed to have to be called a bank, a working, safe bank in Nigeria. Now, the banks were given a 2-year window from the directive in March 2024 to comply, and 6 months is here. And so far, of course, according to the governor, 14 banks have fully met the new capital requirement. As this information comes, we'll let you know. Hopefully, we'll have the information as to which banks have met and you know what to do. Now, one of the other some of the things we were looking at that might come out from this whole meeting from yesterday. There's a thing that will come up on the screen shortly where we're talking about the implications and risk. Now, so for credit, for areas of potential impact, what might happen? Credit market lending rates. Banks may gradually lower lending rates, but transmission is rarely immediate or uniform across sectors. For SMEs, which is what we're very concerned with, some relief for borrowers, potentially encouraging investment and working capital access, especially for small and medium enterprises. Inflationary pressure. If fiscal policies lose or global shocks recur, food, energy, inflation could bounce back, undermining gains. Exchange rate and FX stability, savings and foreign exchange due to import substitution, etc. might ease pressure on the naira. Stability in FX markets is crucial. Policy credibility. This cut must be matched by consistency in future MPC decisions to sustain confidence. And if wicked policies are tolerated, there's a risk of over-reliance on central bank softening. So now, Doctor, you've seen that information. You've heard me read it out as well. Some of these things that are being talked about there. First of all, let's go to the banks. One, do you think that they're going to actually implement this immediately? That's one. Two, for the most important people that this is needed, for those who are going to borrowing, that's the SMEs. Is it really a relief? You know, I know 50 points, 0.5 is quite a number, but would they feel that relief of, oh, I can now go and borrow some money from the bank to aid my business to expand?
So it's a combination of the two, right? You know, in Nigeria, when things want to go out, they go very quickly. But when they need to come down, they don't come down as fast. But then I also have a lot of confidence in the CBN, in their regulatory and oversight function to ensure that, I mean, the CBN can wave a wand and all the banks will comply. I can assure you the CBN has got that level of control on the bank. So in terms of implementation of the rates, I think that will happen, considering the level at which the CBN is able to keep the banks under control. And so I hope that people will not just be in a hurry to just jump at the offer just because the rates are lower. It's a 50 basis points. It might not be so significant for some people, depending on the volume of money they need to borrow. But then I think it also signals a very bright future that, hey, it looks like our dark days are over. And I think it's time to now begin to soar and grow high and all of that. So let's be cautious for the borrowing public. I think this is good news. The rates are lower, so your cost of borrowing would begin to will go down a little. But then I am hopeful it will further go down at this current rate if we keep the indices as stable as they can be. Because some of the things that have been aggravating these indices, I think we've kept them under control. The FX window has been quite stable in the last couple of months, which is very good for the economy. So stability is key. So if we keep the stability and then we continue to accelerate the other lines, I'm sure we should see the cost of borrowing coming down and down. And I think it's not just about new borrowing. Maybe we should start seeing how the banks are able to restructure already existing loans so that it can bring some bit of relief to the people that have already borrowed money. So I think this is a balance that we need to strike. So the banks need to understand that, oh, yeah, you disbursed the money at that rate, but now that the rates have changed, you may need to start tinkering with those rates so that the repayment is a little more flexible and the borrowing public can feel they can begin to access the benefits behind the overall rate reduction. So that's my take on that.
Okay, so I'm going to come to something you always talk about every time we talk about the NPR rate. You always talk about fiscal policy. Fiscal policy. Now this has happened. What fiscal policies do we expect the government to put in place to match this current outcome of the MPC meeting?
So, remember our biggest inflation line item is food inflation. I always come to it. Government needs to continue to sustain whatever effort is being made to provide security. It's very, very important. Then we need to also ensure that we have some bit of hold on market prices, especially for food. When we leave things to the force of demand and supply, sometimes we cannot rule out the activities of very gullible and greedy people. Some people want to milk the country. So if government needs to make some interventions from time to time, it will overall drive down that inflation number. So I'm looking forward to the next inflation number. Let's hope to see that we're still the inflation number keeps coming down. And then that would also buttress the efforts of both the CBN and then the efforts made by the federal government on the fiscal side to enable us have some softer landing on most of it. So the CBN will continue to use the tools at its disposal to see how they can lower the rates using the monetary policy, but the fiscal policy contributes to a bigger bulk of what it is. And I think I must commend the CBN for holding their own part well, but then we need to also get the other part working as well as it should, so that we can have a more balanced pool on the inflation number. That would be my take. Fiscal policy needs a whole lot more to be done. Some efforts have been made, seen some significant improvement, but we need to double down and make it even faster. We need to see that work a lot faster to enable us begin to reap these gains. Because if we keep getting ripped off on the fiscal side while the military side is working, it's kind of a zero-sum game.
Okay, all right. So just before we end, because our time is fast spent, in less than 30 seconds, the next MPC is in November. Hopefully that holds. What are you expecting?
My expectation is if the CBN does not reduce the rate, they should keep the rate constant. That would be my advice. Preferably they keep the rate constant, and then let's see how this resonates in the system. And then possibly in the next rate, we should consider another further reduction if the indices continue to improve. But my recommendation is don't even consider a rate hike. Consider either stability or a reduction in the rate. That would be my recommendation. And if they do a if they do a further 50%, 50 basis points reduction, even awesome. But if they will not reduce, please, they shouldn't increase. I think that has been well said by many experts in the industry, okay. And I'm glad they've also been engaging and also feeling the pulse of the people. That would be my recommendation from a very candid point.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Bashayi. Our time is fast spent this morning on the program. Thank you for your insights and your contributions to the conversation.
The pleasure is always mine. It's always good having me. It's always good being on the program.
Yes, thank you. It's always good having you, yes. And that's the much we have for you this morning on Business Daily. For more of our news programs and documentaries, to follow us on our social media platforms and on our YouTube live stream. I've been your host this morning, Chiamaka Nwafor. Same time, same place tomorrow. Bye for now.